October 14, 1939, was a significant date in World War II as the ripple effects of the previous day's audacious U-boat attack on Scapa Flow by U-47 continued to dominate headlines and military strategies. This attack had struck a devastating blow to the British Royal Navy, sinking the battleship HMS Royal Oak and killing over 800 British sailors. On this day, the world was coming to terms with the implications of the Kriegsmarine's success, while both sides of the conflict began recalibrating their strategies in response to the rapidly evolving nature of naval warfare. Meanwhile, diplomatic and military activities continued across Europe as the war expanded into multiple fronts. Military events, continued naval maneuvering, and Scapa Flow's aftermath. The most important military news of October 14th centered on the ongoing reaction to the sinking of HMS Royal Oak in Scapa Flow by U-47. This event, which had occurred shortly after midnight on October 14th, shook the Royal Navy and raised immediate concerns about the security of Britain's naval defenses. The loss of Royal Oak had demonstrated a severe vulnerability in Britain's supposedly impregnable naval base, and efforts were immediately initiated to close the gaps in the Scapa Flow defenses. These included reinforcing submarine nets, adding more patrols, and stationing additional destroyers to prevent further incursions. The success of the U-boat attack underlined the effectiveness of Germany's submarine fleet, which was increasingly targeting Allied merchant shipping and naval vessels in the Atlantic. German Naval Command, led by Admiral Karl Donitz, saw this success as vindication of the U-boat strategy of waging a tonnage war against Britain, aiming to starve the island nation into submission by cutting off vital supply lines. In response, Britain began rapidly escalating its anti-submarine warfare measures, focusing on deploying sonar technology and depth charges to counter the U-boat threat. While the Kriegsmarine celebrated its victory, the rest of the German military was engaged in preparation for future operations. On the Western Front, both Germany and France remained in a stalemate, with the bulk of military activity limited to patrols and minor skirmishes as both sides reinforced their defensive positions. There were also continued reports of German troop movements aimed at fortifying positions along the Siegfried Line in anticipation of a broader offensive. Diplomatic and geopolitical developments, rising naval tensions, and Soviet influence. The diplomatic arena on October 14th was dominated by reactions to the Scapa Flow incident. In Britain, the government issued official statements condemning the attack, with Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain emphasizing the need to accelerate military preparations and fortifications along the British coastline. The attack significantly heightened public anxiety over the vulnerability of Britain's naval and coastal defenses. British newspapers such as The Times and the Daily Telegraph published extensive reports on the incident, with many editorials calling for increased investment in anti-submarine defenses and a re-evaluation of naval strategy. Internationally, the sinking of HMS Royal Oak had repercussions beyond Britain. The Soviet Union, which had signed the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact with Nazi Germany earlier in the year, remained officially neutral but continued to monitor naval activities closely. Soviet naval forces, particularly in the Baltic Sea, were also bolstering their positions in light of growing tensions in Scandinavia. At the same time, Soviet influence over Finland continued to grow, with negotiations over territorial adjustments raising the likelihood of conflict between the two nations. In the United States, where isolationist sentiment still prevailed, the Scapa Flow attack made headlines as a stark reminder of the escalating conflict in Europe. American newspapers highlighted the vulnerability of British naval forces and the increasing threat posed by German U-boats. Though the U.S. remained officially neutral, there was growing debate over the need to reconsider the Neutrality Acts, especially in light of the increasing attacks on American shipping by German forces. International reactions and media coverage. The sinking of HMS Royal Oak was front-page news across the world on October 14, 1939. In Britain, the press focused on the scale of the disaster, with reports emphasizing the loss of life and the implications for Britain's naval strategy. The Daily Mirror published an editorial titled "Britain's Naval Wake-Up Call," calling for immediate steps to shore up Britain's coastal defenses and warning that further U-boat attacks could have devastating consequences for the British war effort. In Germany, the propaganda machine went into overdrive. The success of the U-boat attack was portrayed as a sign of German naval superiority, and Gunther Prien, the commander of U-47, was celebrated as a national hero. German newspapers hailed the sinking of Royal Oak as a decisive victory for the Kriegsmarine and used the event to rally public support for the war effort. Nazi propaganda minister Joseph Goebbels orchestrated a nationwide media campaign, with headlines celebrating the daring U-boat raid as a symbol of German ingenuity and strength. In France, where the war on the Western Front had not yet escalated into full-scale combat, the Scapa Flow incident prompted renewed debate over naval strategy and the need for stronger coordination between French and British naval forces. French newspapers such as Le Figaro ran reports highlighting the risks posed by German U-boats to Allied shipping routes in the Atlantic, calling for greater investment in anti-submarine warfare technologies. Projections. The impact of October 14th on the future of the war. The events of October 14, 1939, would have a profound impact on the trajectory of World War II, particularly in the naval theater. The sinking of HMS Royal Oak signaled the beginning of a broader and more destructive U-boat campaign in the Atlantic, as German submarines ramped up attacks on British shipping and naval assets. For Britain, the loss of Royal Oak served as a wake-up call, prompting immediate efforts to improve naval defenses and anti-submarine measures. As Germany's naval war strategy gained momentum, Britain and its allies would be forced to adapt quickly to the evolving threat posed by U-boats. This day also underscored the importance of naval warfare in determining the outcome of the broader conflict, with both sides recognizing that control of the seas would be crucial to securing victory in the war. The lessons learned from the Scapa Flow attack would shape the naval strategies of both the Axis and the Allies for years to come, as the war expanded into new theaters and grew in intensity.